On today's show, the Lakers finally hired their coach. Can JJ Redick be the next Pat Riley? Plus, we have our first official trade of the offseason. Then we draft the most interesting free agents of the offseason. All of that and more on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA Friday. Wes Goldberg here with Adam Mares. However you're tuning in, YouTube, Odyssey, your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. We're going to draft our most interesting free agents in a second, but I wanted to start with the news that the Lakers are officially hiring JJ Redick after months of circling each other, some reported meetings, the Dan Hurley interruption, the NBA Finals, all of it's over, and now JJ Redick is officially the Lakers coach. Adam, what do you think of the hire? Not that we haven't thought about it and talked about it a million times already. I guess the most important question is, do you think this helps the Lakers return to title contention, which is obviously their goal?
I mean, probably not. There's not a lot of historical precedent for this specific type of scenario. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs and attention on it. Like, it's not like he's walking into, he'll just get his feet wet. No one will pay attention or this or that. It'll be one of, if not the top story entering the season. There'll be cameras around him nonstop. I'm already annoyed at how much we're going to be talking about this all season long. So there'll be pressure. And then look, the Lakers have a lot of work to do to become a better roster before they become a better team. So for me, I guess it's exciting. We all love JJ Redick, so it'll be interesting to kind of see. We know LeBron likes him. There's a lot to be intrigued by, but as far as a slam dunk, no, this one could go south. It could be really good. Could be the next Pat Riley, but it could also go south.
Yeah, the Pat Riley comparisons have been really interesting. And hey, look, I get it. You know, he's a charismatic guy, very successful in the media space. Pat Riley wasn't in the media space, I think, as long as JJ Redick was, but was also, well respected in that area before kind of making the jump. The difference, I think, between Pat Riley and JJ Redick was two things mainly to me. Pat Riley won a lot. He won a lot during his playing career. JJ Redick has never won a championship. I don't know that matters, but you talk to players around the league, and players who win championships, who go into coaching, just have a little bit more respect. Players Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, they listen to Jason Kidd because he's got a ring. And that ring does carry some weight. I don't know how much that matters. The part that matters the most to me is when Pat Riley made his jump into coaching, he was an assistant for 3 years before he got a head coaching gig.
Right.
And this has been compared a lot to Pat Riley. It's been compared to Steve Kerr. But even Steve Kerr led the Phoenix Suns front office for several years before he realized he hated being a GM and then left and went into broadcasting and then decided to go from broadcasting back into coaching. And, of course, Steve Kerr won a whole lot with the Michael Jordan Bulls and the Spurs. So I think the Redick thing, if I was going to at least – so on its face, it just seems like a little silly to me. We don't really have, to your point, have much precedent for exactly this. If I were going to play devil's advocate, though, and why the JJ Redick thing is a good hire, because I feel like people are just like dunking on the Lakers and dunking on Redick and dunking on LeBron this whole time. And that might also ultimately end up being true, and it is an easy and funny target. But if I were to just play devil's advocate, the three things that I think JJ's got going for him is LeBron respects him. That's probably the number one thing. That's very evident. It's a huge deal. And we've seen coaches that LeBron doesn't expect, and their lifespan is pretty short as his head coach. Everybody will tell you around him, super well prepared, loves the game, and that can only be good as a head coach. Like, you talk to the most successful head coaches in the league, Eric Spoelstra, Greg Popovich, even Joe Mazzulla, who just won the championship. You know this with Michael Malone. They're all insane. They're all psychos. Yeah. And JJ Redick has self-described himself as a psycho. It's a prerequisite to be good at the job. You can't have like a balanced lifestyle and be a successful head coach. To me, those things don't work.
True.
Right? Yeah. And then the other thing I'm just really interested to see is if they can hire some great assistants, which if you've got the JJ Redick, if he has the star power that the Lakers are telling us he has, and he evidently has from a very successful media career, then can he attract some of the top assistant coaches in the league to be a part of his staff to help the learning curve a little bit.
Yeah, but this is where things get interesting, right? First of all, what are the Lakers willing to spend on that staff? But number two, bringing in great assistants that don't necessarily want to be head coaches, because the worst thing you can do to a young coach is give him assistants who are like, hey, but if it doesn't work out with JJ, we could just slide right on down all the great assistants we brought in with tons of experience. That's a horrible place to put a young coach into. So I think all of this stuff, as much as I understand what you're saying, they can be positives, but they can be negatives as well. And the piece you said about being a worker, that's part of it. Being an NBA coach, you have to be obsessive. But there's another part of it, and that is there's a lot of personality management, and coaches really are sickos, and because they have to love what they do so much to put up with all the horrible parts of their job, being away from their family so much, the intensity and trying to get guys who don't have to listen to you and to buy into what you're selling them. We don't know how he'll do on that. As much as he's been a great player, and now he's built a great podcast empire, and it is very impressive what he's done in media in short order. He's had vision, clearly hard work, and executed it. TA's not telling him no. There's not guys at the Old Man and the Three podcast that are like, you know what, JJ, I don't want to do that today. But somebody else to do it.
Right.
At the NBA level, that is what you have to deal with, and it's a whole different set of challenges.
You're exact, and I guess the other part too is everybody keeps saying on the Lakers, well, we want to find somebody who can groom the young players, the Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimuras, Jalen Hood-Schifinos, and stuff like that. If I have learned anything by watching JJ Redick in the media space, is that he has very little patience for people that don't know basketball, and I feel like it's going to require a lot of patience to deal with players who are new to the league and don't know as much as he does. And I haven't seen anything. I know he can relate to LeBron. I know he can relate to really smart basketball players, experienced basketball players. He can relate to Doris Burke. He's got respect for Mike Breen. I don't know that he's going to respect any rookies. I don't know if he's going to have patience for those guys. And so if you're trying to develop something, I'm going to go back to the question I asked you. Does this help them in the short term get back to title contention? I don't think it does. I think it doesn't hurt them, but I think more important than anything is going to be the moves they make with the roster and things like that. If they're trying to win another championship with LeBron James, who is a free agent, but if they're trying to win another title with LeBron on the roster, the front office, what they do to tweak the roster is going to be a lot more important than the head coach decision. But if they view Redick as sort of the long-term guy and is not going to just be out of here in 2 years like every coach over the last decade, then he's going to have to figure out how to develop these young players and figure out how to build the culture and do all those things, because that to me is going to be the most important part for him. Kind of, shepherd this near-term part, but then kind of establish a culture that works long-term for the Lakers.
That the double vision part of this is what's really fascinating. I mean, the Lakers with LeBron, it could always break. You're always 1 year away from it being over with LeBron. Right. So you're right. You're almost hiring for 2 jobs, or at least have a backup plan for a second run.
Before we draft our most interesting free agents, the Bulls have traded Alex Caruso to the Thunder for Josh Giddey. What do you think of the move?
This is the big story to me. Are you kidding me? What is this trade, Wes? Every year we do this where we make fake trades, and every year there's one that's crazier than any of the ones that we came up with. To me, this is a fleecing for Oklahoma City Thunder. And, the one thing I think, look, I've covered Denver. I'm coming from a Denver perspective. Denver struggled with on-ball pressure this year because they don't have a lot of ball handlers. For all the strengths that they have on their roster, multiple ball handlers, and even an elite one. Jamal Murray struggled even against Minnesota's on-ball pressure. Well, now Oklahoma City has Lou Dort, who's phenomenal, Alex Caruso, who's phenomenal, Kaysen Wallace is phenomenal, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If that's your guard rotation, all of those guys can guard and guard at a really high level. So they added to their stable. He's also just a great player. That's a great get. Free agency and trade season hasn't officially begun yet, and Oklahoma City is already in an early lead.
Yeah, that was my big takeaway here. I don't think it was as much of a fleecing as it's made out to be. I think this is Josh Giddey at his lowest value. I think the guy's got a higher ceiling than Alex Caruso. And if you're the Bulls, you're saying, like, what are we really playing for? Caruso's in his last year. We got a former lottery top 6 pick in here, and with real upside, who wasn't a good fit for the Thunder, but might be a good fit for us. I still think Giddey's got a ton of talent. And I don't know. To me, it's better than just getting some sort of first-round pick in 2029. Let's get the guy in here and see what he can do. So
I feel like
I don't
they
hate
could
it
have got that too. I just feel like you could. I mean, if you
Sure.
told me like those 2 teams made it, and those are the principal parts, I'd have been like, okay, let me look at the picks that we're going to include in this deal. There's no picks.
That's definitely fair. It feels like there should have been one extra pick going Chicago's way, but
you know whose name I heard a lot in trade talks, like every team trying to figure out they could get? Alex Caruso.
You know how you didn't leverage that?
Do you know who I didn't hear anybody talking about how they could get? Josh Giddey. So
that's such a good point. Yeah, it feels like the Bulls almost did this too early. Like, why were they in a rush to get off of Alex Caruso? Create a bidding war, man. Like, we haven't even started yet. It's not even technically.
Leak it a little. Yeah, you leak the news. Like, you hear what we're thinking about.
Yeah, we think Josh Giddey, but we'd open to somebody else if they were able to beat that offer. I do like the move, though, for Chicago, just getting Giddey in there and trying to see what it is. You're absolutely right, though. The Thunder part of this, it's such a good move for them. They have another guy that just plays both sides of the floor, doesn't need the ball, which I think is really important. You see all these other people like, well, they got this max cap space. They should go get some big name free agent. Maybe they should trade for Donovan Mitchell, like whatever it is. I'm like, no, I want the ball in Shea's hands. I want the ball in Jalen Williams' hands. Go get me guys who don't need the ball in their hands, but can make open shots and play great defense. And they did that with Caruso. It makes some of those other pieces that you were talking about not expendable, but for the right price, maybe. And then that was like their one other team need was sort of replace the Giddey spot. They did that with Caruso, who, by the way, I saw this. Kevin O'Connor had this. Caruso was coached by Mark Dagnall at the Oklahoma City Blue, so they actually have a prior relationship. So that's a cool little wrinkle here. But now just go find that center. Go sign Isaiah Hartenstein to a 2-year, $22 million a year deal, and you've solved all of your problems with the Thunder in one fell swoop. You're done. You're halfway done through having a complete offseason.
Man, that's a great one. I will tell you this: Boston won. They had the best defensive backcourt in the league, I think, and the best on-ball defensive rotation of players. I think Oklahoma City just matched them. If you just say like, let's go through the list. Not necessarily just the starters, because I still think Drew Holiday and Derek White maybe are a little bit ahead. But when you go to the full 4 guys that you can throw at your guard spot defensively, I think they might have the best depth and collection of guys.
Absolutely terrifying. That's the word I used to describe the Thunder all season. Terrifying. They're even more terrifying now. We are going to draft our most interesting free agents after this. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It's the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. And with Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you are locked in. Now that the finals are over, the hoops action doesn't stop on Prize Picks. Women's basketball is just getting started with young stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves alongside great stars like Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson. You can win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. There's always action on Prize Picks, and this is the perfect time to try something new as basketball season is winding down. Make sure to try out esports this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. The best way to support us is to subscribe on YouTube. You can also find us on your favorite podcast app. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We are going to draft the most interesting free agents of the offseason, and then we're going to talk about them. So this is not a list of the top free agents. We're not drafting the top free agents. That's boring. This is just who we think, whose situations we're going to be most closely monitoring, the players that we think could be important additions, ones that we actually think could be on the move. Just the most interesting. So I'm going to start because I decided I wanted to.
Okay.
And then you'll go after me, and we'll kind of snake draft this thing. And I'm going to start with LeBron because we have not done enough Lakers talk on the show yet. I'm starting with LeBron not because I think he's going to leave the Lakers. I think everybody's pretty much settled on the idea that he's going to re-sign. I'm just more interested to see what the contract looks like. Does it include a no trade clause? Is it the full max? I'm sure it will be. This is more just, when does he sign it? Does he try to create some leverage by waiting to sign it?
That doesn't sound like him.
It doesn't really sound like him, but it's LeBron James, and because he might be the greatest player of all time, it's always just kind of interesting.
I was sorry. I spaced out. I was so bored by that pick. Was that your number one? Okay, all right. I'm back.
Your pick.
Honestly, this is a tough list because I don't actually think this guy would be my first pick, but I'm going to say Paul George.
Okay.
I think he just goes to the Clippers, so that's why I said it's not interesting. Earlier today, it was reported, I believe by Shams Charania at first, that the 76ers are losing interest. I think he phrased it that way, like growing less interested.
Waning interest. Waning. Like a moon.
Which could be, that's the kind of thing you say. That's like your dad at the car dealership. You're like, you know what? I'm not even sure I want the car anymore. I think I'm going to walk away. Like maybe you're just trying to do the old ruse. But here's my thing. Paul George is so good. Paul George has the weirdest sort of like, how do you value him? Because he's clearly a phenomenal player, one of the best. Still, even in the league now, I still think he'd be one of the best running mates. Like not number one guys, but number two guys. He's still so good at that. But at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily want to stake my team's success on him because he's come up small, not been healthy, all these different things. So to me, I still hold him really high because he could totally swing the championship odds based on if he were to leave and go somewhere like a Philadelphia. But, I don't think it'll be that exciting.
I didn't have Paul George on my list, and then the Shams tweet came out, and I'm like, maybe now I do, because it was a weird tweet. To me, that was the Sixers. I felt like I read it, and I was like, did the Sixers get some sort of indication that Paul George is not signing with them? And so they're trying to get ahead of it and put it out there, saying like, hey, we already know we're not trying to get Paul George anymore. We've already gotten the clue he's not coming here, so we're letting everybody else in the league know that we're open for business. And to me, that's maybe what that leak means. I couldn't really figure it out, but if Paul George is just going to re-sign with the Clippers, it does become a lot less interesting unless the Sixers are trying to create some sort of leverage. The Clippers are basically telling Paul George, we don't want you, and the Sixers are telling Paul George that we're not that interested in you, and maybe that brings the price down. I don't know, but it is a little bit of an interesting situation just given sort of the cloudiness around it all. I'm going to go with my next one with Isaiah Hartenstein.
Man, what are you doing to me? That's my guy.
I love this guy. I loved him when he was playing for the Clippers. I thought it was a great pickup for the Knicks. He's going to make a lot more money than he made on the Knicks this summer. Might be by the Knicks. It should be by the Knicks, I would argue. If the Knicks were, they should do everything they can to keep him. But he's going to be expensive. You look at the going rate for centers last summer, a guy like Nikola Vucevic, 2 years, $40 million, so $20 million annually. I think he's worth more than that, maybe between the $20 to $25 million a year range. He's an awesome rim protector. He's skilled with the ball in his hands, knows what to do with it, and just a good teammate, good rebounder, big body. Every team can use a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
Untapped potential as a passer too. Like he didn't do it a ton and with the Knicks, but he is good at that. I even think he could shoot the ball. Like if you're signing him to a contract you're talking about, I do think there's more headroom there. Like he bought in. His career has gone as such that he's kind of reduced what he's done, to become a high-level role player. I think there's room for a re-expansion because he has some juice to his game.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson got hurt for a playoff game or something, and Isaiah Hartenstein had to walk in, and they ran the offense through him like he was Domantas Sabonis. So you're exactly right about the passing ability. There's definitely some more upside there.
Man, I don't want to. I'm going to go with KCP as the next one. There's a lot of guys that I think are more interesting but unlikely to actually leave. KCP is a guy that I think is moving on from Denver, getting priced out of Denver's price range to re-sign him. They would have to go into that second apron, and I think teams are a little worried to do that in the year one of the second apron penalties. And he's a guy that could totally swing the title odds as well. Why do I say that? Well, he has 2 championships in the last 4 years. Just him and Drew Holiday, the 2 guys to have done that. Like Drew Holiday, he's a great two-way player that fits in and into his role. So for me, another guy that's been rumored to be connected to the 76ers, he would be great there, and he would kind of help complete their roster.
I'm going to be watching this very closely. He is exactly what you said, the kind of guy who could tip the scales for a team. A winning player, already has 2 championships. Denver obviously wants to keep him. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to pay him. But I think his best fit is in Denver. I really don't want to see him leave Denver, as I'm sure you need. But there's going to be teams out there like the 76ers who are just going to be able to offer him $30 million a year if they want. They can give him just absurd money, and if that's out there, you never know what's going to happen. I think he makes a lot of sense for Orlando, right? Just a souped-up Gary Harris, which is the guy who kind of unlocked their lineups last year. If they're not able to go get Klay Thompson, KCP makes a lot of sense as maybe a backup for them. So he was on my list too. My next one is Nick Claxton.
Okay, man, this is ahead of somebody I thought would be next. But all right, I like Claxton.
I just think his fit in potentially in other places could be really interesting. I think he could be an under the radar sneaky addition for a really good team. My problem is finding the team that makes sense for him that has cap space, right? Like OKC to me does not make sense for Nick Claxton. They need bigger bodies. Claxton is about the same, he's got some of the same issues as a guy like Chet Holmgren does in terms of the body weight and the strength and stuff. Like he's not going to go to Utah. That doesn't make much sense to me. Detroit doesn't make any sense to me for Claxton. Orlando maybe a little bit if they were trying to find an upgrade at that center spot, but they have so many guys at that position.
They do.
I don't necessarily love that. Would Philadelphia throw a bunch of money at Claxton? It sounds absurd to put Claxton and Embiid together, but if Philadelphia's just got all this money lying around and they don't know what else to do with it, would it be crazy? To me, the fit that makes sense. There is a report that the Bucks could be looking to move off of Brook Lopez and kind of modernize their defense, and it feels like after the Lillard acquisition, they would be better off going into a switch everything defense as opposed to having a guy like Brook Lopez drop and doing that kind of defense that they had with Drew Holiday and that kind of group. Could they find a way to swap Brook Lopez for Nick Claxton? Maybe it's got to be a three-way trade because I don't know how much Brook Lopez makes sense for the Nets anymore. But is there a way that they can swap out Brook Lopez, get Nick Claxton, and modernize that defense a little bit? That would be a little interesting to me. But I'm interested to see what happens with Claxton.
I could see it. The next guy for me, though, that I thought you were going to go to was Malik Monk. To me, he's a guy that he's a classic guy that some team's going to overpay and probably try to extend his role beyond, like push the limits of what his role can be. But I'll be excited to see it. He's a heck of a player, one of the more exciting players. So I'm curious to see where he goes and what his new role becomes.
I got a couple of more little players that I want to touch on before we finish the segment. And then I've got a great countdown for you that I'm really excited for, Adam. Yeah. We're going to do all that next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else, and LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Before we get to our countdown for the weekend, a couple more most interesting free agent guys. I'll throw one at you. Derrick Jones Jr., NBA Finals participant.
Yeah,
Derrick Jones
I like
Jr.
this. All right, now I like this.
Let's get into the weeds here. So the Mavericks
participant.
The Mavericks are faced with maybe not being able to bring him back. I guess because the early bird rights and stuff, they can only get to a certain amount of raises. They can only basically pay him $5 or $6 million a year. And they're going to have to figure out a way to bring him back. I would argue, and as good as Derrick Jones Jr. was and as important as he was to that team, I wouldn't stress that much over it if I were Dallas. I think he's going to get overpaid somewhere. And if you're Dallas, I feel like if you're trying to upgrade the roster, that's the spot, right? You're not upgrading Luka, Kyrie, PJ Washington. You've got Gafford and Lively. If you're trying to upgrade the starting lineup, I would start there. Now, bringing back Derrick Jones Jr. in a reserve role, that could be worth it. But he's a little too streaky defensive from a three-point shooting perspective. Defensively, he's good, but I think you can find, similar kind of guys defensively as him. I would be looking to upgrade that spot, and if the Mavericks do move on from him, I'd be really interested to see where it is that he ends up, because I do think he could be a useful player for the right team.
The problem Dallas runs into, he was a great player on a great value contract, and now he exceeded that contract, and you have to find somebody else who's good on that value contract. Similar to what Denver had to do with Bruce Brown. He was perfect. They had the guy, but then he played himself above that contract, and you no longer can afford him. I liked what he did. PJ Washington being there probably makes it a little easier because there is some overlap there that wasn't there before with Grant Williams. So I agree. He's intriguing, and He's done a lot. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if he was a guy that some team pays for the Dallas experience and they don't get it.
Right. I mean, he's had a pretty inconsistent career if you think about it. Like, he kind of blew up in Miami, had a big year there, goes into free agency, signs this big contract with, what was it, Chicago? He gets traded somewhere, Portland. Maybe he signed with Portland and got traded to Chicago. I think that's might have been what it was. And then he ends up kind of flaming out on that big deal, lands in Dallas on a minimum, rebuilds his value, and now he might get out. He might get overpaid somewhere else again, and we might go through this whole cycle again. Any other names that you want to get to before we move on?
I don't think so. Well, Miles Bridges would be the one guy.
Yeah.
I know that one obviously comes with some baggage to it, but he's an incredible player, and some team is going to just say, you know what, he's serviceable, and he is very serviceable. He's like a great player.
Yeah, you're right about the baggage. It's going to be something everybody's going to be sort of watching to see what does he end up getting, what kind of earning power does he still have. It's definitely something worth monitoring there. And you're right about the guy was a borderline all-star, an all-star before everything happened, so we'll see how that plays out. All right. It's Friday, Adam, which means it's time to count down to the weekend with our weekly power ranking.
I'm not a system player. I am a system player.
Go power rankings. Go power rankings.
So Joe Mazzulla made some news when he answered a question on the Low Post, Zach Lowe's podcast, about how he'd rob a bank. And he might have taken it too seriously. Was getting accused of taking it too seriously? But if I'm going to defend Joe Mazzulla, I don't think that there's any such thing as taking hypothetical situations too seriously. So
also, who hasn't talked about hypothetically robbing a bank? Come on, Wes. Everybody has thought about, like, all right, how would I do it? So I like it.
That bank right there. How would I rob it? Look, in light of all this, I have my top 5 NBA players that I would want on my all-time bank heist team. Maybe not all-time, but just current year bank heist team. So we usually do like a top 5, like a ranking. I just have 5 members, so it's not a ranking here. But I got 5 members with 5 jobs on the bank heist team.
Not a power ranking then, but okay.
We're running the rules here. First thing I need is a George Clooney. I need a lead guy. I need the guy with the charisma.
This would
the guy
clearly be the number 1, but okay.
You know what? You're right. We can rank these. Let's rank these. I got it. All right. We're ranking
the least and most important guy on the bank heist would be.
All right. So first guy is the right-hand man. You just need a right-hand man. You need a Matt Damon. You need a right-hand man. My right-hand man is Anthony Davis.
Oh.
Perfectly suited. No, just totally happy being the second guy. Not ever gunning to be the number 1 guy. Knows exactly what his spot is.
I see what you're doing.
Like, he's like, nope, this is LeBron's squad. I'm here. I'm his right-hand man. I know how to play off LeBron. I know. You just need a guy who knows his role. He's not going to shake it up. We don't have a mutiny on our hands. Anthony Davis is just going to do what he's got to do for the lead guy, which we'll get to later, evidently.
Not always available. One negative, but
not always available. But if he's not there, you don't really need him. You know, he's just sort of the right-hand man. It's just like, it's fine. That was number 5. This is number 4. I need the technician. The guy that just knows stuff. High IQ person here, just in charge of knowing the things, problem solver. I've got Nikola Jokic here.
Oh, this big heist is going to go swimmingly.
And he knows stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, he definitely knows stuff, yeah. he might have robbed a few banks himself back in the day.
He knows some things. He's got some horses that can help, like, pull the giant safe away. Just in case.
Okay.
He's there. All right. We need a locksmith.
Okay, yeah.
I need somebody with quick hands and a calm demeanor. I need Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
That's a good one for him. I think you're right.
Lead the league in steals or near it. Quick hands. Quick. Doing it quick, but calm, man. Nothing unflappable. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. When you hear the police sirens, he's not going to get shook. He's going to do his job, and he's going to be a lead at it. I need a getaway driver.
This is a tough job right here.
I thought long and hard about this.
So if you say LaMelo Ball.
We need more than one go-kart here.
Okay.
I'm going Damian Lillard.
Okay.
Cool under pressure.
So
fourth quarter is his time. This is the last part of the bank heist.
That is true.
It's
That is
Dame
the
time, baby. He's the getaway driver.
Everybody in. We're going.
Everybody in. He's got some street smarts. He's from Oakland. Like he knows these streets. He knows where to go. He knows the shortcuts. So I got Damon Lillard. Yeah, getaway driver. And then I need my Clooney. I need the charisma. I need the leader. I need the guy everybody wants to follow. I need the guy that's in the middle of everything, sweet talking the person at the front, the bank clerk, keeping them distracted while everything's happening in the back room. This one's obvious, isn't it?
JJ Redick. No, I'm kidding. I have no idea.
It's Anthony Edwards, baby.
Oh, I think you're right. He's the captain of Team USA, the future captain.
Yes. So that's the bank heist crew. We got Anthony Edwards as my Clooney. I got Anthony Edwards as the right-hand man. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's the locksmith. We got Nikola Jokic as our technician, our smarts behind the scenes, and then Damian Lillard waiting outside in the getaway car. Shout out to Taylor Swift. Shout out to Joe Mazzulla. We got it all.
I would watch a movie with Anthony Edwards and Nikola Jokic. So if we can make the movie, the documentary, whatever it is, we just need those two to really rob a bank. Well, it'll be high comedy.
NBA's Ocean's 20 or whichever one we're on now. That'll do it for us today. Don't rob any banks this weekend, people. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Everydayers, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcast apps.